All right, you might start sweating on this. What's your greatest secret? If that question got you a little nervous, don't worry, we all have them, even our U.S. government, some might say especially our government. For more than 20 years, our next guest has unearthed some of those secrets in his thriller books. The Viper is the next adventure in the Zig Nola series. In this edition, a man hides a precious object in his burial suite, and Zig Nola must race against a killer determined to get it back. Author Brad Meltzer is among an elite group who have made the bestsellers list in fiction, nonfiction, children's literature, advice, and comic books. As you might have figured out, he loves to write and he loves to share what he writes. Good morning. Great to see you in person.
So good to see you in person.
Yes. So I met you several years ago through your writing journey, and then of course after that we would join you on Zoom, but you're in town and we'll tell people why you're in town in just a little bit. But besides the stories that you write, your personal story is such encouragement to so many people for so many reasons. And one of them is the importance of a teacher and the words that come out of their mouths. There was a teacher who said to you 3 really critical words.
She said to me, "You can write." This was Miss Sheila Spicer in 9th grade. Changed my life with those words. She said, "You can write." And I said, "Well, everyone can write." She said, No, you know what you're doing." She tried to put me in the honors class. I had some sort of conflict. She said, "Here's what we're going to do. You're going to sit in the corner for the entire year. Ignore everything I do on the blackboard. Ignore every homework assignment I give. You're going to do the honors work and thank me later."
Oh.
And so, sure enough, 10 years later, I went back to her classroom. I knocked on the door. I said, "My name is Brad Meltzer. I wrote this book and it's for you." I handed her my first novel. And she starts crying. And I said, "Why are you crying?" And she said, "I didn't think I was having an impact anymore. I was going to retire this year." And I said, "Are you kidding me? You have 30 students. We have 1 teacher." And to this day, Miss Spicer is one of the only people that gets a free copy of every book I've ever written. Yeah, always. She just got the Viper. Just sent it in the mail to her.
That's why I think it's so important for if you have a teacher that, and usually we don't understand or realize that impact until years later. If you can go back to that teacher and just say thank you, it keeps them going for that next generation.
I always say, go thank that teacher, that mentor, that person who told you were good at something for the first time. Go say thank you. You won't believe what comes from it.
Did you think before then that you could really write in some special way?
No, of course not. I went to a job that wasn't working out. And when I got to the job, the person who said he was going to be my mentor left the job. Ooh. So I said, "Well, what do I do with this year?" And I said, "Everyone has one story in them. I'm going to take my shot. I'm going to do what everyone would do in a situation where you think your job's gone south and everything's gone wrong." I said, "I'm going to write a novel."
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, the rest is history, as we say.
But I got 24 rejection letters. There were only 20 publishers. I got 24 rejection letters. That means some people were writing me twice to make sure I got the point.
Wow. Even before then, though, when you were going to college, a lot of people struggle with those college essays, what they need to say and the whole bit. Your application to the University of Michigan was a love letter to the school.
I can't believe you found that. It was.
We were digging.
I was creative, and I didn't want to write a normal essay. So I wrote to Michigan, "Dear University of Michigan, I love you. I've always loved you. I loved you since I first laid eyes on you on that beautiful shirt with the gold and blue." And my sister is actually one of the premier college counselors in America today. And I sent her, I found the old letter. I found my old thing and I said, "Is it good?" And she's like, "It's so you. It would never get you into college today."
Oh. Well, here's the funny part. After hearing that story,
it did work.
I can imagine how many kids are going to write love letters to all the universities right now. It's like the minute I saw that burnt orange and white on the shirt, I was going to be UT, whatever. All right. You went on to law school, but never practiced. Did you think that you would never practice when you went to law school? Because some people do go for the degree, and it can mean all kinds of other things besides just practicing law.
Yeah, I went because I was scared. I went out of fear. My dad always struggled with money. When we were growing up, I knew you never answer the phone at the end of the month because that's when the bill collector's called. I knew you don't answer the front door because that's when the rent is due and we don't have it. So I went to law school so I wouldn't have my dad's life. I didn't want to struggle with money the way he did. I had no idea that I was going to get book ideas there.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to pause on a lesson right there as well. There are a lot of kids when I say, "What do you want to do when you go to school?" will say, I was one of them. I thought, "Oh, I'm going to be a doctor," because I thought it sounded right for the grades I was making. I never in my life would have really, unless it was a couple of teachers that kept pushing me, I would have never said I'm going into journalism and being on TV and people would see me. So a lot of kids will say what sounds right or what they think their parents want to hear them say, doctor, lawyer, engineer, that type, as opposed to stepping out and saying, you know, I really do want to be an actor, or I want to be a this, or do something that a lot of times people look at and go, that's just a hobby, it's not a career.
100%. Right? And what you have to do, I had 24 people who told me to give it up. Right. 24 people said, you cannot do this, Brad. And I don't look back and say, I was right and they were wrong and ha on them. What I look back and realize is that for whatever your dream is, you got to go chase. You got to find the one yes. Forget about all the 24 no's, find the one yes.
Yeah. All right. Your debut book, The 10th Justice, which kind of, the Supreme Court, clerk leaks a ruling to a lawyer. So there's kind of where that law background comes in.
Yes.
So everything that you did, whether you practice law or not, like we said, it feeds into your experience.
It's all the research. All of life is research, right? And for me, what I think you have to do is find your authentic self. We all act one way with our parents, another way with our friends. We're chameleons. Mm-hmm. And what you have to do is find the people, you have those friends who just let you be you, who you just feel like you're in your best version of you. You don't even think about what you're going to say. You got to keep becoming that person. Yeah. And that's where you really unlock yourself.
All right. And there's, when you unlock yourself, there's a whole lot going on. Like I mentioned earlier, children's book, advice, conspiracy. I mean, when it comes to the conspiracy series, you uncover hidden plots behind history's biggest mysteries. You've done a series of those. The first conspiracy, the secret plot to kill George Washington, the Lincoln conspiracy, the Nazi conspiracy, the JFK conspiracy, the secret plot to kill Kennedy, and why it failed. You find all these things that we don't necessarily come across in our history classes or even history books, and you dig and you find those things. So those are based on facts. But then you have political experiences that you also use to write some of the books, and we'll talk about your latest Zig Nola book in a second. But you've met every president since George H.W. Bush. He shared a letter with you that he left for his successor, Bill Clinton. You were recruited to the Department of Homeland Security to help combat terrorism, and you created 2 shows on the History Channel. What a wide range going on there.
No, and listen, one of them happened with one of our beloved Houstonites here, which was President Bush. I got a letter one day, a fan letter saying he loved my books. Got one from Bill Clinton, got one from President Bush. They invited me to the White House for private lunches. It was an unbelievable experience to go do it. And what no one knew, and I couldn't tell anyone at the time, is when President Bush was dying, they were bringing some of his favorite authors to come read to him. And I got the call.
That's amazing.
What was his deathbed, basically. And I was in Kennebunkport, Maine with my wife, and the Secret Service leave. They say, you're going to read to him for 5 minutes, and he's going to basically, after 5 minutes, he's going to fall asleep. And I said, no problem. So Secret Service leave, it's myself, my wife, President Bush, and his service dog, Sully. That's all it's there. And I look at him and I say, sir, you want to read this book? He has a copy, a dog-eared copy on his desk of my book, The First Conspiracy, about a secret plot to kill George Washington during the Revolutionary War. And he'd given me a beautiful blurb, and President Clinton had as well. And he said, I say, you want to read this? He says, because he can't speak anymore. He just says, or And I start reading to him. And sure enough, 5 minutes, he falls asleep just like they said. He's sleeping most of the day now. Yeah. And I want to finish the chapter. The chapter I brought to read him was the moment where George Washington has the Declaration of Independence read to his troops for the very first time. And I get to those words, Deborah, those words we all know. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. And his eyes pop open. Wow. He's wide awake. And I get to the end of the chapter, he's still wide awake. And I say, sir, you want to read another chapter? And another one? And we get to the end of another? And instead of being there for 5 or 10 minutes, I'm there for an hour. I say goodbye to him. I know I'm never going to see him again. Last time I saw him was when I came back to Houston for his funeral. And to be able to read about the very first president, to at that point, the oldest living president in the United States, it's one of the most humbling moments of my entire life. I never thought that kid who had no education and the first in his immediate family to go to a 4-year college was going to have an experience like that.
Gosh, what a story. And yours is so much more sophisticated than the story that I often share with President Bush. I was interviewing him, and we did a mic check, and they go, Deborah, mic check. And I said, check, baby, 1, 2, 3, 4. All I want to do is a zoom, zoom, zoom. Not realizing the song I was singing, but then they go, Mr. President, and he goes, check, baby. All I want to do is a zoom, zoom, zoom. And I'm like, the president is singing Rum Shaker. Okay, but what a beautiful story that you just shared. Okay, speaking of stories, the Zig Nola series, what gave you the inspiration for this? And let's talk about your latest one.
Yeah, so let's just paint the picture for the latest. It opens, a man walks into a funeral home carrying his favorite blue suit. He's got a terminal disease, and this is the suit he wants to be buried in. So if you go to your local bank and you want to open up a safety deposit box, well, paperwork gets filed. It means the government can track it. Same thing if you go to the UPS store and you open up a P.O. box, but if you secretly sew something into the lining of your suit and you hand that suit to your local mortician, you have the ultimate untraceable hiding spot. So the man goes back to his hotel room. There's a guy with a gun waiting, says, "Where is it?" Man says, "I don't know what you're talking about." The guy shoots the man dead. That suit is still in the funeral home. You won't believe what's hidden inside it or who's about to find it. And that's chapter 1 of The Viper.
Oh.
Chapter 2. No.
Yeah. Chapter 2, you're going to have to get the book.
No, so
All
that,
right.
and the series came because I just, I love researching. And Zig is this beautiful character who I love, who believes if you put good in the world, you make the world a better place.
Yeah.
But I didn't have my second character. And I was in this giant warehouse searching for, researching with the military. And they told me that there was all this art that they had. I'm like, why does the Army have all this art? And they told me this true story that since World War I, that the U.S. Army has had a painter on staff who paints disasters as they happen, whether it's storming the beaches of Normandy to 9/11. I said, you're telling me everyone's racing in with guns blazing, and you got someone who's racing in with nothing but paintbrushes in their pockets. I got to meet that guy. He sounds crazy. I want to meet him. And they said, you mean her. You want to meet her. It was a woman. And right there, my main character, Nola Brown, was born. If you like the girl with the dragon tattoo, you're going to love The Viper. You're going to love Nola Brown.
All right.
And that's where she came from.
We're going to take a break. And speaking of people who can change the world, your I Am series is so amazing because there's ordinary people who end up doing extraordinary things, but you take us to not where they are, but how they got there. So we're going to take a break and we'll be right back.